Hi, Chris here. Welcome to the last part of my trip to the USA and the Four Corner States. In parts 1 and 2, Pete, my cousin, had organised a tour around Arizona and Utah for myself and a couple of his mates. If you haven't already, go check out those videos. As you can see here, we had a great time exploring such a beautiful and spectacular part of America. After returning to New Mexico, Pete showed me a little bit around the Sandias Mountains and also his old family home. And this is where my family came over to visit when I was only about 1 or 2 years old.
Wow, that's the homestead. Oh, they built all this retaining, that was never there, the retaining wall, grass, my goodness.
And here's a flashback to 1977, and that's me and wearing red. Being too young, I had no memory of this trip, but fortunately my dad was an avid photographer, and growing up he would often put on slideshows of our family holidays. And there's Pete in the middle with the red cap. Even then you can see he was a real adventurer. My brother is on the left, and there's my sister, and Pete's parents on the right. So it was good to see Pete's old family home and compare it to those slideshows that I remember. Pete's brother James actually moved to Australia and lived with our family. So before this, I really knew James a lot better than I knew Pete. It's a bit of a shame that I didn't get to know Pete growing up, but yeah, making up for lost time now. The plan now was to drive up to the Sandias Peak, but unfortunately there were roadworks blocking our way. We did, however, visit Tinkertown, which is a museum that features miniature towns and knickknacks and other oddities. There's a lot of detail that you could spend hours looking at. So all those mountains?
Yeah, those are the San Mateos right in the foreground.
San Mateos. And Santa Fe is off to the left.
Off to the left, yeah.
Up that way somewhere. As we couldn't get to the summit due to the roadworks, we decided to take the shortcut back to Pete's place, down this gravel road. And we came across these wild horses on the way.
They're all wild. It's crazy, I've never seen that before.
Just a few shots here of Pete's neighbourhood. After relaxing for a few days at Pete's place, we headed to the southern part of New Mexico.
Valley of Fires, I guess that's what they call it.
To pass the time while driving, we got a bit addicted to this Australian crime podcast.
For 3.5 weeks, $5,000 had been drained from her account.
At Three Rivers, we visited a petroglyph site. These rock carvings were made by the Jornada Mogollon prehistoric Indian culture, of which there are no known modern descendants. The petroglyphs' purpose and meaning are not entirely clear. Some depict the animals and plants that people saw around them. Many certainly had religious meaning. Just below the petroglyph site, you can see the remains of a village built by the Jornada Mogollon people 1,000 years ago. New Mexico, and over here we got this basin here. This is where the Air Force plays up. This is the Tularosa Basin, nestled between the Sacramento Mountains and the San Andreas mountain range. Just beyond is the Trinity site, where the first nuclear weapon was detonated. To the south is White Sands, which is where we're heading to next. On the way we stopped at Pistachio Land for some ice cream. Pistachio ice cream.
One of the rarest landscapes on Earth.
Unlike most sand, which is composed mostly of quartz, the dunes of White Sands are made from gypsum. This is unusual because gypsum is soluble in water, However, New Mexico is very dry, and there's no rivers here to transport the gypsum out to sea. Something that's not as whiter than my skin.
That's cool. There you go.
Hello from White Sands, New Mexico. From White Sands we head east and set up camp near Brantley Lake, not far from Carlsbad. The following day, after an hour's drive south, we arrive at Carlsbad Caverns. We descend down 750 feet to what's called the Big Room, which by volume is the largest cave chamber in North America. It was surprising because we're so far underground, but there were these tourist kiosks and good facilities as well. But I was thankful mostly for the lift that could take you straight up to the surface. We then began our journey back home. Once again passing over the volcanic field, and then near the Rio Grande we stopped in at this wildlife sanctuary.
You see him there he goes, right?
Yeah.
Jeez, that deer's looking at him.
Looking for after something. Pete was hopeful that we might see a bird migration while we're here, but I think the water level was just too low. We were very fortunate though to see the stag with the large antlers. I was fortunate to be in New Mexico at the same time as the balloon festival. Waking up very early this Saturday morning, Pete drove us to a spot where school buses shuttle the crowds to Balloon Fiesta Park.
Welcome to the 51st Albuquerque International Balloon Fiesta. I said 51st Balloon Fiesta. And countries.
This was a pretty cool drone show to kick off the festival. Full of New Mexican symbology, the red and green chilies, and if you're a local you have it Christmas, the New Mexican flag with a Zaya sun symbol, and of course the Roadrunner and Coyote. I was really blown away with how massive this event was. So many people, and I lost Pete for a while, but then I saw him with a couple of his friends. And there's Guy, who you may recognise from the Arizona leg of the trip. Once we'd seen enough, Pete and I got back on the school bus to return to where we parked Ruby. The following day, Pete and I took a day trip out west of Albuquerque to the El Malpais National Monument. El Malpais in Spanish means the Badlands. Below us here, about 3,900 years ago, lava flowed to the north, coming from over 200 volcanic vents and a shield volcano. I've got to say, the national parks in the United States have been very impressive, not only because of their location, but the facilities and information centres have been great. This national monument features many volcanic features, including lava flows, lava tubes, cinder cones, and shield volcanoes. As you can see, the folds here in the rock, the once red-hot lava, cooled and hardened into the shapes of its movement. Here we have a lava tube. Apparently you used to be able to explore these lava tubes, but now they're off limits as the resident bats are suffering from a fungal disease known as white nose. The idea to create national parks was born in the United States in 1872. Nearly half the countries in the world now have national parks. Australia has the most, almost 700. It was a terrific day trip to go and see one of these unique landscapes of New Mexico, the Badlands, El Malpais. The following day we journeyed north into the southern part of Colorado. Journeying up into the Colorado mountains, this was a beautiful contrast to the desert areas we'd visited over the last month. We came here just at the right time to see the full colours. This is the Conejos River, a tributary to the Rio Grande, which flows through Albuquerque, which you'll see a little bit of later. travelled up here today to Colorado. And, it's a little bit different from the desert scenery we've seen so far. And beautiful autumn or fall colours. Come here at the right time. We follow the Conejo River up this gorgeous valley. I hope that's how you pronounce it. Conejo? Conjayos? I think it's pronounced Conejo. We followed it up to the Platoro Reservoir. Now heading back down the valley, we came across quite a few of these little all-terrain vehicles. They seem to be quite popular. Just before heading back into New Mexico, we stopped here to experience a little bit of the Continental Divide Trail. The trail runs for 4,873 kilometres between the US borders with Canada and Mexico. In 1962, the first section of the proposed trail was laid out in Colorado. Below us, a railroad can be seen snaking through the valley. Tourists can take a steam train up here from Chama, and that's where we're heading to next. Having crossed back into New Mexico, we stayed the night in Chama before making our way back towards Albuquerque. This was a beautiful road we took, just the sort of road I would love to ride my motorcycle on. Heading down from the mountains, we came across this property, which kind of made me feel like we were still in the Wild West. Heading south now, through the northern part of New Mexico, we came across this community of earthships. An earthship is a style of architecture designed to behave as passive solar earth homes made of both natural and upcycled materials. We stopped here briefly at the Rio Grande Gorge Bridge, before driving north a little way to see where the Red River merges with the Rio Grande. My time here in the United States will soon be coming to an end, but before I leave, Pete took me to experience a little bit of the Indian Pueblo tradition, so we headed into Albuquerque and the cultural centre there. After visiting the cultural centre in Albuquerque, Pete took me just north to the Rio Rancho Brosque, where there are walking trails alongside the Rio Grande. The water levels in the Rio Grande were quite low this year. This cottonwood forest is one of the largest remaining natural cottonwood forests in the world. This is not far from where Pete lives, and just near here there's a pizza joint called Dion's, which had the most delicious meatball subs I've ever had. Probably not terribly healthy, but yeah, really nice. But now it was time for me to head home. Pete saw me off at the airport as I boarded my flight, flying back to Adelaide via LA and Sydney. I've got to thank Pete for being such a terrific host and tour guide. I've got to say, in general, I found the people in the Four Corner States very polite and friendly. Well, this brings me to the end. I hope you enjoyed these videos as much as I did looking back at my time over there in the Four Corner States.